Hello everyone, and welcome to my Getting Started guide for AWS. In this video, I'm going to show you some very basic things you can do with AWS right out of the gate. And I'll show you some things that you might be able to learn very early on in your journey of AWS. So AWS can be a very large place because there's over 10 certifications. And right now, in 2020, there's 175 different services that Amazon Web Services has. So you can kind of see how this can be very overwhelming to start with. I'm here to make it as simple as possible, and I'll show you some of the very basics. So people ask me all the time, where should you start with AWS? So in this video, I'm going to discuss with you some of the things that you should do to learn right after you make your AWS account. So if you don't know who I am a software engineer that works on AWS on a day-to-day basis, and I hold most of the AWS certifications. I don't hold all of them because I didn't take the easiest certification because I didn't really want to do it. But yeah. So before we get started, if you do want to follow along with me, you will need to have an AWS account. And if you don't have one already, then I will have a video in the description showing you how to make an AWS account, because you do need to do some sign up stuff, because you will need a credit card to sign up for AWS. I don't make the rules. That's just how it works for them, because they potentially want to charge you eventually. I mean, it's a business after all. So I'll have a video in the description if you want to make an AWS account. If you do end up making an account, though, you will have a free tier for a year. So you won't be charged anything that is in the free tier. And I'll show you some of the free tier things in this video as well. All right, so here we are in the AWS console. So most people, when they get started with AWS, they recommend you to start with something like EC2, which is where you can basically run servers that can do stuff for you. But I think that is kind of old-fashioned nowadays, because you can run services that will run EC2 for you. So unless you want to get into nitty-gritty things, EC2 might not be for you either. And people also recommend you start with IAM as well, because it's security, identity, and compliance. IAM is identity and access management. So this is basically where you can make groups and users. So for example, if you're at a company, you want to have all your employees be a part of a group. For like developers, administrators, I already have some here. But I'm not going to start in either of those because I think they're both boring. So what I will get started on first, though, because I think it is the simplest and the simplest service that you can use with AWS that you can get the most done with right out of the gate. And if you haven't guessed, it's S3 with storage. Because what do most people want to do? They need to store stuff. So I mean, I have a bucket already, Daniel Clark. There's nothing in it because I deleted it. But let's just make a bucket right now. Make a quick bucket. Let's call it like this video, please, and thanks. So bucket names have to be unique. So this is why hopefully this isn't taken. But if you haven't already, can you like this video just for this bucket bucket name? Thanks. So then you have the option of to make this public or not. So for example, if you want to give this to your friends and maybe like store something on there, store a picture of a cat or something on there, and then give it to a friend for them to see, you might want to have this be public. So in this case, yeah, let's make this public, and then you have to. I would not recommend doing this like in like production or stuff that is sensitive data or something like that, because anyone will be able to access this. So that could be bad, but in this case, I mean, the name of the bucket is like this video, please, and thanks. So it's probably fine, right? So we're going to create this bucket, and it'll show here almost instantly. So we're going to go into this bucket, and we're going to do something very simple, such as dragging and dropping a picture. So you just go to a file, and we're going to drag and drop it, and then it'll show you this little upload kind of screen. We can just click upload and do it automatically, but we'll just go through the steps just for the process. So this is also like we're setting permissions based on who wants to read it and who wants to write it. But the important thing we're going to be worried about at the beginning is for managing public permissions. So we want to grant public read access to this object. So we can give this to our friend, our mom, our dad, and say, hey, look, I made a website. And that's what we're going to do. I'm not going to give it to anyone because I don't know. So we're going to click next. And there's, of course, different ways of storing it. So you can do standard, which is what we're probably going to do. And availability zones is just more availability zones, the more, I guess, the better it is, honestly. So, like, for example, if there's one availability zone, it's probably not, you're not really going to use that very much. So maybe infrequently access data. That's what IA is. Or you can also use intelligent tiering, which after 30 days, it will be moved into something that won't be used as much. And there's also Glacier, which if you want to store something like forever, or Glacier Deep Archive, then you would use those. But we're not going to do that. You can also encrypt it with master keys, KMS, which is key management service. But we won't do that either. We can review all we saw, and it's 1.5 megabytes. So you will have to, since we're using free tier, we won't have to pay for this. But if we weren't, we have to pay like a couple cents or something like that. But since we set it up in free tier, it should be good to go. Now we can click the picture, or we can click the PNG, and then it'll give us some information on it. All right, so they're going to give us some options here. So we can open it, we can download it as something, make public, and it's already public, so we don't have to do that. We can copy the path. So you'll see who owns it. So this could be if like a user owns it or something like that. And it's currently in intelligent tiering. So what we're going to do is, this is a public link right now, since this is a public object. So this should just be a website anyone can go to. So we'll just go to this link, like this video, please, and thanks.s3.amazonaws.com. So if we click it, there we go. We can see that this is our cats. And we'll see it's in the web browser here. All right, now I'm going to show you another simple service. So I mentioned EC2 before. So we're going to go to EC2, and we're going to make a very simple free EC2 server that runs all the time. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to click Launch Instance. And then we will just go into and launch a Linux instance, because those are pretty simple to use. So we're going to select the first one. And then it'll give us some options here. So we could have used a Windows instance if we really wanted to. But we are going to use this t2.micro because it is free tier eligible. So what that means is that we won't get paid, or we don't have to be charged anything, because this account is currently on free tier for like a couple months. So this is EBS only storage, and of course it's free tier, so it's not going to be the best performance, but it'll do for our purposes because we're not going to use this for anything. So we can review it, and this is of course all the network stuff and instance details. If you ever want to change that, like the role, the network for VPC, which is virtual private cloud, so we can change all its IPs and stuff like that. But we're not going to be caring about that. We can change the storage. We can add new storages to the server. Let's see about that. So we can add an EBS volume, like size, how many gigabytes. We can put a lot of gigabytes in there. Amazon is basically unlimited. So we can, how fast that hard drive will work. So right now it's general purpose SSD. We can make it faster with a provisioned IOPS SSD, or a cold hard drive. So that's going to be like slower, but it will be cheaper. And then there's another hard drive and magnetic as well. So let's go. We're not going to do that. We can tag this so that like we can have all our servers be a certain tag, like, I don't know, whatever you want to tag. We can do security groups so that you can only accept certain IPs to go into the server. And then when you're all done, you get to review it just like S3 and launch. But you won't only be able to access it and SSH into it if you have a key pair. So you have to create a new key pair, and then we'll just call it subscribe, please. And then you'll download the key pair somewhere. Keep that safe and make sure no one ever gets it, because if you lose that, you won't be able to access this server. So there we go. If we go to view instances, we will see our server we just made there. All right, so I could SSH into this server, but I'm not really gonna do that because I don't really want to do anything with the server. So I'm just gonna delete it immediately and show you how to delete it if you did make it with me. All right, so to delete it, you're gonna go to Actions and then the instance state and click Stop, because you have to stop the server from running first before you delete it. Yes, stop. And it might take some time to show that it's stopping, and once it's stopped, you'll be able to terminate it. So you can go to instance state and then terminate. And then yes, terminate, and there we go, it's terminating. Let's see, shutting down. All right, one other service I want to show you while this is shutting down is Lambda. It's another service in the compute service section. And Lambda is probably way cooler than EC2 because basically, well, it basically kind of runs on servers behind the scenes, But basically, you can run any code right here, whenever. Or you can use blueprints for code. So if you ever heard of Alexa, we can search like Alexa, and then you can basically make an Alexa app. Well, you can basically make an Alexa app with Lambda. So if you go to the third tab here, Browse Serverless App Repository, you will see that they have so many public applications that people can use. So Hello World. So let's see what Hello World was. You saw Alexa there as well. So authors AWS, so you can know this is safe because AWS made it. And of course, it's Hello World. But it has a template for it. So this is just the CloudFormation template. This is what makes the Lambda function. So who can access this, permissions. And then if we go into license, we can see the license. So we have the option to change the name of this function, but we're just going to deploy it. And this will deploy this stack right here. So what this will do is it'll have a runtime of Node.js 12, and then it'll create a Lambda function serverless to run this for us. Sorry, we actually need to put something into this identity name parameter. So we'll just call this comment on this video. We'll call that, and then we'll deploy it. So once you click the deploy button, it'll take you to your application is being deployed. And then once it's deployed, we'll be able to test the app. And let's try it. So of course, we're going to have to wait for the create in progress to be completed, though. All right, so once it is done being deployed, you can go back to the functions screen where we were at before. And we can go into the application, or go to the function screen. We're going to go into this function, and then we will see the code here that it deployed for us. Of course, this isn't code we wrote. It's AWS wrote this, but we can just have this be deployed just like that in a couple of seconds and have this run so that anyone can call this. So let's test this. So we're going to click the test function, and then we're going to configure a test event. So we can create a test event. So maybe event name, we'll just do Dan Clark. So key one. So we're going to have this have a certain value. Dan, this one be Clark. We're going to create this, and then we will run it. So as see, it succeeded, and we can see the logs, and see the area below shows the results returned by your function execution. So Dan, and then Clark. So it logged that out for us, which is great. And of course, you can do much more complex stuff than just log information. But I just want to show you very basics of all this information. So of course, there's a lot more services of AWS. And it would probably take me like a million videos to go through them all. But I just wanted to show you probably like the most popular ones, EC2, S3, and Lambda. And of course, there's much more machine learning. There's like analytics. There's governance, so you can make sure everything's going as you want it to go. And network stuff, which can be confusing with VPCs and stuff like that. But that is it for this video. I hope you liked it. Make sure you like and subscribe this video. And I'll talk to you later. Peace.